This is Glambition Radio, episode number 272, Take Back Your Time with Christy Wright.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. We are down to the wire for iconic 2021 Liberation. This is my event I'm hosting next week. We have just a few seats left. If you've been on the fence and you're like, you know what? The world hasn't ended. I thought it was, but it's apparently not. And I'm free to get on a plane and sit in a room with these incredible women doing incredible things. And it's exactly what I need right now. IconicWithAllieBrown.com. We have just a few seats left. We would love to have you. And look, average revenues in the room per head are over $1 million. You don't have to be at that level. We would love to consider you. Please apply. Get all the details at IconicWithAllieBrown.com. And man, it is productivity month here at Glambition Radio. My last official interview we had on the show was with my client, Tanya Dalton. Her book called On Purpose just came out. Make sure you pick that up. And then there's another book you need to pick up now. It's Christy Wright. Her book, Take Back Your Time, the guilt-free guide to life balance. You know Christy as part of the Dave Ramsey team. She's been with them for over 10 years now, teaching on personal development, on business, on faith, and we're excited to have her back on the show because I think we can't talk enough about this. And I was excited to venture into some new territory with Christy today on the show. You will hear that. First, I want to give a shout out to 2 great reviews my team pulled for me from Apple Podcasts. The first is from Camille Camelot from Canada. Superb podcast. I've been listening to this for some time now. I absolutely love it. I feel both grounded and uplifted by every episode, and I thoroughly enjoy the fascinating conversations Allie has with her guests. Allie, your podcast is a gift to women entrepreneurs everywhere. Thank you. And Patsy PJ says, nutrient dense. What you consume matters, whether it's food for your body or food to fuel your passion and purpose. Glambition Radio never disappoints. P.S. I'm the opposite of glam, so I was skeptical at first, but there's no fluff here. Allie has that rare quality of someone you've known, loved, and trusted forever. I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. Karma will reward you. Pay it forward. Take a minute. Write the review. We really appreciate it because it helps more women discover the intelligent conversations that we are having here on Glambition Radio. I'm going to give you that link one more time for Iconic. Those last few seats available, IconicWithAllieBrown.com, November 3rd and 4th here next week in Phoenix. And now get ready for an enlightening conversation with Christy Wright. Christy, where are you today?
Franklin, Tennessee.
Tennessee is very pretty and green.
It is.
And I need to come visit again.
In the fall.
Am I invited?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Anytime. Yes, please come hang out with me.
There's a lot of cool people moving there and living there.
So many people from California are moving here. They're picking between Nashville and Austin. Apparently, we're the 2 cool cities that people are coming to.
And hey, Phoenix just moved up to number 5. We were number 6 as far as largest city in the country, and now we're number 5. And I want all these Californians to go home. I was one of them. But there's too much traffic, and I can't get dinner reservations, and it's ticking me off. It's so great to have you back on, and I was so thrilled to hear about the new book, which I have a copy of here, which is Take Back Your Time. I like that. Reclaim it. It's like the reclaiming, guilt-free life balance. I have so much to say on this, but I want to start with you. Where did this book come from? Like, was this a long simmering idea, or were you finally like, oh my God, this problem is not going away for women?
Well, yes, all of the above. And Allie, you and I have been friends for a long time. And so you've seen me do work through Business Boutique, and I've been a business coach for over a decade. And what's so fascinating is in 12 years of doing work with women at all different stages of business and speaking at lots of different type of events that are men's events, women's events, both, and all the things, the number one question I have been asked is not a business question. It's this question. How do you balance it all? How do you balance everything? How do you balance having a business and a family? How do you balance having a full-time job and a side business that you want to grow to be your full-time thing? How do you it's all we can talk about. And what's so interesting is people hate this word. Like, they roll their eyes, balance is BS. We get a lot of feelings around this word, and we can't stop talking about it. It's the number one thing that we talk about and we ask. And I think there's a lot of layers to that. And so I want to dig into some of that really quickly, just for the context around the heart behind this book, like you said, because when we talk about balance, we have all these analogies, right? Like juggling balls and spinning plates and walking the tightrope. And some balls are rubber and some balls are glass and some balls, what balls can you let drop on a Tuesday? It's not work-life balance. It's work-life integration. It's not work-life balance. It's work-life harmony. These are wonderful things. They didn't actually help me manage my time at all.
It's so funny to hear you go through them all too. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right.
Right.
Glass balls. I heard glass balls too. I'm like, I lost my balls. I don't know where my balls are.
What are we doing? And I think that it's one of those things where, like, have you ever seen a juggler? Have you ever seen a tightrope walker? Every muscle on their body is tense. It looks like a freaking circus. And I don't want to live my life that way. And so I think we have this idea in our mind that work-life balance represents something impossible. It's a 50-50 split. It's 50% of the time at home, 50% of the time at work. That's not realistic. It's not even desirable. Or maybe we think, oh, well, it's doing everything for an equal amount of time. It's doing everything all the time. Every day you're going to work out, have quality time with your husband, with your kids, get your work done, have personal time. That's not realistic, not even a little bit. And so when we have this idea around this word that it is an impossible standard, then we come up with the narrative that we're failing. We feel guilty. I don't have enough balance. I don't do this enough. I don't do that enough. We don't know what balance is. We're just sure we don't have it. And we don't know what we're supposed to do with our time. We're just sure we're doing the wrong thing. And so as a result, we have millions of people, but specifically women, walking around all day, every day, feeling like they're failing and falling short and focusing on what they're not doing, what they didn't get to, what they haven't yet done. And I think that we set ourselves up to fail when this is the idea of balance that we're chasing. It becomes a moving target that we never get there. And yet we can't stop asking about it and seeking it and pursuing it and somehow wanting it, because I think that in our spirit, we feel like something's not right. So I think that there is a version of balance that's possible, but it's going to take reclaiming this word, redefining this word, showing you tactical steps to achieve it, your version of balance, by the way, which is the only version of balance that should matter to you in your life anyway. And I have found that this version of balance I'm talking about is not so much how you balance it all like a verb, how you balance it all, something you do, but it's actually something that you can create in your life where you could feel balanced and still be busy.
Yeah.
Where you could be a balanced person in an out of balance world, where balance looks more like peace, being confident in your choices when you say yes to this and no to that, being proud of how you spend your time. I think that's what we're actually after when we say we want balance. And it turns out the path to that is not productivity.
You know what's interesting, and from the perspective I've been privileged to have, behind the scenes working with some major female entrepreneurs on stages at events. And there's been kind of a pushback to even asking this question, if you know what I mean, in some professional circles. I know there's some speakers who don't even want to be asked this question on stage. How do you balance it all? Can you really have it all? And I agree, like some of that's tired, but at the same time, I remember talking to one of them when she came off stage. I said, do you know why we ask you this still? I said, because we need help, because this is new for us, because we're wired for guilt, because we're the ones waking up at 2 a.m. realizing we forgot to defrost the chicken. Right. Like this is just how we're wired. And so I never get tired of this topic. I never get tired of the discussion. And my recent meeting for the Trust, which is my network of women who are in the 7-figure revenues, 8-figure revenues, it still comes up so naturally. Some of them are homeschooling right now. Some of them are taking care of parents at the same time who are aging. Some of them are running multiple businesses. And so it's a question that comes up again and again and again. So what do you think, what's different about your advice? Like you alluded to that before, and you're not talking about balancing balls and all this stuff. Actually, you just zoned in on something really I want to draw attention to as well. It sounds like you're saying there's not one only perfect way to do this. This is about us.
Yeah. So if life balance isn't a 50-50 split, and I don't think it is, we can do that and still feel out of balance. And it's not doing everything for an equal amount of time, which I don't think it is. You can do that and still feel out of balance. We've tried all that. It's not being productive, being more efficient, more multitasking, and so on. Here's what I believe it is. Balance is about doing the right things at the right time. And you get to decide what's right for you in any new season. When you do that, when you do the right things at the right time, you actually feel that sense of balance that you've been looking for all along. So I want to help people get in the rhythm. This is the one-liner of how I would summarize the whole book. I walk you through a path of 5 tactical steps to do the right things at the right time. But if we were going to boil it down to one line, this is it. I want you to get in the habit of asking yourself, what's right now? What's right now in this season? What's right now this week? What's right now today? Because here's what's so powerful. When you get in the habit of reassessing what's right now, even when things change, you're reassessing, okay, with that in mind, what's right now? Then what you're doing is you're giving yourself permission to focus on what's right, to be proud of what's right, to make progress in what's right, to be present for what's right. But here's what's huge. You also give yourself permission to shake the guilt for all the things that are not right now. And just because something isn't right now doesn't mean it'll never be right. It's just not right now. And what women are so notoriously guilty of is something in our lives change. You've got a health diagnosis. You've got a child that needs homeschooling. You've got a parent you're taking care of. And instead of adjusting your calendar and your expectations of yourself, you just add that to an already overflowing plate. So you're taking care of a parent, you're homeschooling your children, and you're still beating yourself up that you didn't work out or you didn't home cook that organic meal.
Yeah, and I'm not counting my macros and
Right.
It's low carb day and I forgot, right? We're doing this to ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what I want to help people do is I want to help you identify what's right now, what's right in this season, and focus on that. And what's so powerful. So let me give you an example. This summer was a lighter season at work for me. So because it was a lighter season, that's the seasonality of my workflow and my kids' school calendar, more things made the cut. In a lighter season, you might have 5 or 6 priorities that you can dedicate time to. In a heavier season, where you've got something very consuming, maybe 2 to 3 make the cut, realistically. So in the summer, I was getting my work done. I was playing with my kids. My house was pretty clean. I was working out. I was seeing my friends. That was great. That was this summer. This fall is different. This fall, I'm in the middle of launching a book that is very consuming. I also am going to spend time with my family. That will always make the cut, even if the capacity is different. And I did put those in that order on purpose. Work comes first right now. I'm not a bad mom. That's my priorities in this season. What's right now. My family, I'm spending time with my family outside of work. And then third, I'm in seminary taking classes right now. Now, things that I'm not doing. My house is not as clean as I want. I'm not working out and I haven't seen my friends a lot. I am not failing. I'm strategically choosing what to prioritize that's right for me right now and what is not right now. So when I walk through my house and I step over toys because it's not as clean as I want, I don't beat myself up, Allie. I don't tell myself I'm failing and you didn't work out and you didn't see your friends. Instead, I go, girl, that's not right now. You're reading 300 pages a week on the book of Revelation. You're launching a book. You're doing great.
Yeah.
So ask yourself what's right now. Truly get ruthless about what is an actual priority, and you will give yourself permission to set aside, to set down these things that are not right now. I like, instead of the analogy of the juggling balls and we're dropping balls, I don't want to juggle balls. I just want to choose the ones I want to hold, and I want to choose the ones I want to set down, and then I'm in control of that.
Yeah. How do you design I like the season idea because I wrestle with that as well. Like, I think, over the summer, especially, I spend a lot more time with the kids. We're loving having them home for now with homeschool. I say that because I want everyone to know, like, the great thing about today is like everything is fluid. And I think it's given us this permission to have ebbs and flows because the world can go mad one day or the next. You don't know what to expect. So we've become kind of agile, right? And that actually lends itself nicely to what you're talking about, in that there are times where you're going to ramp up a certain part of your life or business, right? So this summer, I spent a lot more time with the kids, but now though I'm hiring a whole new team, we're ready to ramp things up. And now I'm getting that guilt, which, I mean, let's talk about the mom versus business guilt, because I had no idea what this really was until I had kids.
Yeah.
And when I'm in my office getting stuff done, there's always that little inkling of mom guilt. And then when I'm with them, trying to be present with them, there's the CEO guilt.
Right.
And how do you navigate that?
Okay, there's two pieces to this, and I love this question because it's such a struggle for all of us. So there's two pieces to it. The one piece is more theoretical, not as tactical. The second piece is tactical. So let's talk about the theoretical. I talk about this in the 5th step on the path to balance, which is be present for what matters. And I identified years ago that so much of my guilt came from always focusing on where I was not. So when I was at work, I was thinking about my kids. Am I a bad mom? Did I miss field day? Did I forget their snack? Are they sick? Do they need me? Then I would go home and I'd think about work. I missed the deadline, forgot the email, got to catch up on that project. I was always focused on where I was not. When I was at work, thinking about the kids. When I was with my family, I was thinking about work, and I was always focused on where I was not. Let's just go ahead and acknowledge, if you live your whole life this way, of course you feel guilty because you're always focused on where you are not. So a very simple practice, and this is controlling your thoughts, a very simple practice is to flip your focus. Instead of looking through the rearview mirror of what you've left behind, I want you to flip your focus to look through the front windshield of where you're going, where you are. So it's truly the practice of be where your feet are, wherever you are, be there. This takes intentional practice. When I drive out of the driveway, I flip a focus and go, I'm in work mode. So right now I get to hang out with you. I'm present with you. I'm on this phone, this interview with you, and get to have this great conversation. When I go home, I'm going to flip a focus and look my kids in the eyes. I'm going to put my phone away and be there. Wherever you are, be there, be where your feet are. So this simple practice can help you shake the guilt because you allow yourself to be present in a moment while you're in it. And that sounds so simple, but we don't do it. And that's where a lot of the guilt comes from. You can do this also, by the way, with your to-do list. You've got 50 things on it. You get 47 things done and you beat yourself up for the 3 you didn't get to. Instead, flip your focus to what you did right instead of what you perceive you have not gotten to. Or the way my friend Tony says it that I quote in the book, he said, I'm always driving to somewhere that I love. When I'm driving to work, I'm driving to somewhere that I love. When I'm driving home, I'm driving to somewhere that I love. He was focused on what he was going to, not what he was leaving
behind.
behind.
I like that. Yeah. I like that, framing it that
visually,
way.
Yes.
It just clarifies it.
Yes. That's the theoretical of focusing on what you're going to, not what you're leaving behind. The tactical. Let's talk about the tactical. So there are lots of areas of our lives that are the work is never done. So they're like this black hole. There's a few in particular, though. Number one, your business. The work is never done in your business. Ever. Ever. Parenting, the work is never done. Ever. Keeping your house clean? I don't know. If you're like me, it's never done. No matter how much I clean, they can mess up faster. So the work is never done in these areas. So one tactical thing you can do, and this is going to sound maybe too legalistic to some people, but I just want to help them have an action they can take because it actually can be very freeing. I want you to define success in that area. So how many hours a week is success for you in your business? 40, 50, 30? I don't know. You decide. It's your business. How many hours would you work and feel good going, yes, I put in a good amount of hours this week. I give myself permission to be off after I've checked this box. I'm defining success here. Do it with your kids. How many hours a week do you want to spend with your kids that you define as this is success? This is quality time. This is me being a good mom. This feels good. Because the work is never done with kids. The work is never done with the business. And we live our whole lives thinking, well, when the work is done, then I'll feel good. Then I'll feel proud. Then I'll feel successful. And the truth is we never get there because the finish line always moves. This is a simple example, but last year in the pandemic during quarantine, Allie, I was at home with my family like everybody was. Most people were during that time, unless you were an essential worker, but we were all home cooped up. Well, in August, I had to go out of town 3 weekends in a row for different things. I can't remember what they were. One was for friends, one was for work, one was for something else. And I was feeling really guilty. Like I was feeling really, really guilty for being out of town 3 weekends in a row away from my kids. And I was kind of beating myself up over it. And I talked to my husband, who's really, really practical. And I said, yeah, I'm just really struggling, feeling really guilty for leaving the kids 3 weekends in a row. That's just a lot. And he said, Christy, you have been locked up with them for 6 months. We've had 6 months of quality time.
It's a lot of together time.
I think you're good. I think you're okay.
Yeah.
But that's what we do as women, as moms, as business owners. We say, well, here's what I didn't get to. Here's what I didn't get done. Here's what I missed out on. Here's what the work yet to be done. And we live our lives in a perpetual state of what we have not yet done. So we're always feeling like we're failing. Just from a tactical standpoint, define success. In this season, what does success look like? Okay, let's say 20 hours a week. I'm going to spend 2 hours each night, Monday through Friday, 5:30 to 7:30 with my kids. I'm going to spend 5 hours on Saturday and 5 hours on Sunday. That's success.
I like that. No, it's being intentional and understanding because I'm in that busy season now with my kids now, I'm not spending as much time as I was even a month or two ago, but Maddie just started horse lessons and I love going with her. I think because I don't want to leave when I'm there. It's just such a happy place with horses. And so like those 2 hours though, to me is worth so much more time otherwise, right?
Right.
So it's also about the quality, right? And exactly, like I want those magical moments with them. I don't need to be driving them around. Like some people love driving their kids around. I don't love driving them around.
No,
I don't love
right.
it. So look at the things that really matter, like the magic things that matter. And that helped me reframe it because when it was a quantity issue, there was just it was a no-win guilt trip for me.
And it seems like it's never enough. Like what's the right? So you can say, because that's the other thing about defining success, you can define it in number of hours or you can define it in times of day. I want to be there for horse lessons. I want to be there for dinner time. I want to be there for Saturday morning pancakes. You just decide what those timeframes are or the days or the quantity, however you want to define it. But you cannot achieve something you never define.
Yeah.
And you feel like you're failing not because you're actually failing. You're really not. You just haven't defined success in order to be able to acknowledge that you are doing what you say you want to do. And if we base it on when the work is done, we'll never get there because the work is never done in these areas of our lives.
I'm going to ask a really left field question. I just think it's funny to ask because as we have wonderful husbands, they cheer us on everything we're doing. And when you told your husband you were writing this book on guilt-free life balance, was he like, of course you're a master at that? Or was he like, what? Like, how did he view all this and how you manage it?
He is so funny. So he is a man of few words, to say the least.
Strong silent type.
He is, yes, very much so. I'm like, how was your day? He's like, good. And that's all I get. So I could spend an hour and a half telling him my vision for this book. And he's like, that's great, babe. That's our conversation. So, I mean, he's so incredibly supportive of me. He really, really is. He just shows it in different ways, you know? He's so supportive too. I mean, that's the other piece to this. And I actually talk about this in the book. You bring up a good point because what your situation is will greatly affect what your balance looks like. If you don't have help, if you don't have family nearby, if you don't have a supportive husband, then what you're able to do is going to look different. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think sometimes we look at people on Instagram or we look at people that have a very different situation and go, oh, well, I should be doing all that. It's like, well, my mom lives 3 miles down the road. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do it by myself. So please don't think that I do. So there is a piece of this of determining what balance looks like for you in your season, but also in your situation. If you're a single mom, it's going to look different for you. Yeah. It's going to look different for you. It's all on your shoulders right now. And you're doing better than you think you are. And so there's a permission there to say, hey, let's figure out what it looks like for you specifically.
Yeah. So when you're working with the women who come to your events, is it still called Business Boutique, the events?
So we do. So the Business Boutique is a brand under all the other things that I do. But yes, Business Boutique still stands on its own. So we still do the business stuff in addition to life balance and development.
Most of my conversations with women on this show are for when they're at, achieve certain levels. But let's talk to all the women who are going to get something started right now with their business and how this applies to them. Because I remember those first few years, that was a big learning curve for me to get out of my old mindset around time into a whole new way of looking at it and getting the right things done.
Yeah. Well, it goes back to what I said a minute ago where we talked about defining success, because one of the big hurdles that I hear from women starting out, whether they have little kids at home or they're a stay-at-home mom in this season, but they want to start a business, or they're working a full-time job they hate, but they want to start a business, whatever place they are, but they want to start a business. They say, when I have time left over. And you just don't. You just don't. You don't have time left over. And so you don't find time, you make time. Now, you can make time around times that work for you. So let's say you have little kids, you're going to make the time to work on a business during nap times, after they go to bed, whatever that looks like. Maybe your husband takes them out for a play date on Saturday, and that's the day you work on your business. But you have to make time. This is not something that is going to appear out of thin air. It does take work. And so I think that when we get out of the mindset that we feel guilty because we're doing something selfish, then we can actually be free to use our God-given gifts to dream up this idea, work on this idea, build this out, and begin to take action on it, because the only thing that's going to lead to this business growing are actions, not you learning, not listening to a podcast in the car, not thinking about it, not even just doodling it on a napkin. You've got to do something. You've got to actually put yourself out there and put some things out there. That's what starts to move things in the marketplace. And so I think, to me, that's the biggest holdup. It's the myth of, I'm going to do it when there's time left over. And there's never time left over. So you're going to have to make time if you want it to happen.
Yeah. Because suddenly you're 50. Like, I just turned 50 a few months ago. And I'm like, what just happened?
Where did that time go? Where did it go?
As one of my friends said, you're entering the back nine of the golf course.
Oh, no.
And I hated that at first, but I'm like, it put it in perspective too, man. It just put it in perspective. Like, what am I doing with these years that remain?
That's right. Yeah.
What am I here for? And how can I be happy? I think most of all, it transitioned to me looking at everything going like, what's going to make me happy as I get down the road, right?
Well, it's funny you say that, because that is the conclusion of the book. I talk about happiness and how it's okay to want to be happy in your life. And I think that's what we really just want. I think we just want to be happy. And the truth is, filling your schedule where you're so exhausted and you are a taskmaster and a slave driver in your own life, rushing from one thing to the next, it doesn't lead to you being happy. So let's back out of this and say, hey, what schedule, what version of balance, what commitments, what tasks on your to-do list, what life, how you spend your time is how you spend your life. What life would make you happy? Let's spend time on those things, because you're right. Whether you're 50 or 20 or 80, you have a right to be happy in your life. And I think it's okay to pursue that. And it's weird because we just keep doing a bunch of crap that doesn't lead to that. So let's stop.
I think a lot of this came from, in the business world, decades ago, when the women before us, God bless them, came in, right, and adapted into the corporate world and kind of started doing the things that men have been doing. And it was time for us to do that. It was an old model, and still is. And what you're seeing over the last year, especially, is these old models really are coming up to be dealt with, that they don't work, right? They're imploding. This is why you have the mass resignation, as I heard Dave call it, right? I think he was the first one to use that term. So I like to give him credit, because now everyone's saying it. And women really have been pioneering the new models as far as how we work from home, I have a new member in my private coaching group right now, and she came in already with this really successful business. And at the end of the first day with the small group, we do a lot of interaction and masterminding. And she said, I have to tell you that I just am so inspired by how you work. Like, she pointed at one of us across the table, like, you don't work Fridays. And she's like, you don't work Mondays or Fridays. And you work around the country and you work on your boat. And just these new models of how it looks so different and it's customized to who we are. And that really, when you look at what's happening right now in this meta level, is this huge unlocking of empowerment for women right now, in realizing there's not one way to do this anymore. It's about your personal way, and using the principles you have here lines up with that. And then I'm going to add on the business portion, is you design that business around what is important to you. We've all been chasing these false metrics now for years. We're plugging into systems and formulas that we just see other people doing. And we're dancing in the TikTok video because someone else is dancing in the TikTok video. My God. So please get back to what you value for your life and your family. And I'm telling you, people think it can't be done, but I see women in the 8 figures of business running their lives this way. And it's incredibly inspiring, because I really think this is the future.
Yeah. I remember, Allie, when you were on my Business Boutique podcast a couple of years ago, and we talked about, it was like the traits of highly successful women. And you said something, I'm not going to quote you exactly right, but it was something to the effect of, when you're starting out, you follow a formula, just like cooking, you follow a recipe. But at some point you start to get so good and so courageous and so confident that you start to, you start to mix it up, a dash of this, a sprinkle of that. You try some new things. And I think that applies to everything that we're talking about, because we don't have to do it how it's always been done. We
Yeah.
have the ability to break the rules and try new things and redesign our lives. I'll use a money example. So about 3 years ago, I guess it was 4 years ago now, my husband and I were looking to buy a new house. And so we had saved up some money. We were going to buy a new house that was newer, bigger, nicer. We could afford it. We were excited about it. And I just kept looking and looking, and we couldn't find anything. Like, nothing felt right. There were beautiful homes that we could afford, homes in the area we wanted to be, but nothing just felt right for some reason. And then we were coming home from one day, which I'm a person of faith, so I believe this was a God story, even though that sounds crazy. But we were coming home from Florida one day, and we had decided when we were in Florida that we were going to buy a boat because we had some of the extra money we were going to use on that. And since we weren't moving, we decided to stay put in our older house. And we're coming up, and I was like, wouldn't it be fun to get a house on Airbnb, like rent something out for my birthday in the summer, and we could bring the boat up to it and be able to like drink and not have to drive home or whatever. So we're looking for Airbnb houses, and then we're driving up 65, like going through Alabama or something. I live in Tennessee, so we're driving up to Tennessee. We're in Alabama. And I somehow, Allie, get from the Airbnb app to the HomeSnap app, which is a real estate app. And I just zoom in from where we are on 65, up to a river, directly to one house. And I say to my husband, well, here's a lake house for sale. And he goes, all right, well, let's go look at it. We go drive to this lake house and we buy it that day. Like, we put an offer in that day. We had the contract the next day and closed within a month.
Your ideas converged.
It's just, especially to some people, it might sound so bougie to have. No, it's like, listen, you look at your money differently. You just look at your money differently. You're like, okay, yes, we could get a big, nice, fancy home here, or we could buy a lake house and a boat here. You just look at it differently, where the numbers actually are cheaper for what we did than if we would have bought the house that we were looking at before. So you can do this with your time. You just look at it differently. What would it look like for you to decide that you're not going to work Fridays? You take Fridays off the table and you design your schedule around that. Or you're going to delegate XYZ activities that you've always done, because I know no one does it as good as you do, but maybe in this new world, you could let it go and you let someone else do it, and you're able to take whatever time you work 30 hours a week instead of 60. You just need to think about these things differently. This is your one life, and you get to use these resources, time, money, talents, energy, any way that you want to. And so we just have such a freedom to look at it differently and do different things with it.
I have a few more questions to ask, but first I just want to give another plug for the book. It's Take Back Your Time, The Guilt-Free Guide to Life Balance. And it's available, I'm going to say, everywhere books are sold. Is that true?
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. And what's the feedback been so far?
It's been really cool. So the number one thing people say, which is my favorite response, is this is not just another time management book. And that's really cool, because that was exactly the heart behind it. This digs to the deeper issues. One woman said, this helped me not just get my time back, it helped me get my power back. And I thought, oh, that's cool. That's right, girl. It's your life.
Yeah.
You can spend it however you want to.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, I'm going to switch gears again, because I feel like we're on a catch-up call as well.
Love it.
I know. We need a glass of wine. Or where'd we go last time? We went out for Mexican. That was a few years ago. I'd love to have a margarita
I know.
again.
I need to come back to Phoenix. I used to come to Phoenix all the time. I need to get back out there.
Yeah. Seminary School. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, talking about seems like bad timing. It was like a year ago. I just felt this urging to go, and I ignored it. And I'm a person of faith, so I felt like that was God calling me. And I just argued, because I was like, that's for really smart people, academic people, people that know the Bible forward and back. I'm not that person. And so it's not for me. You got the wrong girl. And after months and months of this, there was one day when I was downstairs doing my quiet time, just reading and praying. And my husband came downstairs and said, hey, I need to tell you something. I feel like God's calling me to go to seminary. And tears streamed down my face when I said it. And I was like, dang it, that means I have to do it, because I knew that God was in those tears. And that was the beginning of me getting transcripts from University of Tennessee from 2005 for researching schools, asking around, writing essays. I mean, it's just crazy. And now I'm in my second class. So I'm going one class at a time. So
it's hard, isn't it?
Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard, but it's also so good. It's stretching me. It's growing me in so many different ways. I mean, when you talk about time, it's like, this has forced me to practice what I preach with time, to prioritize what's right now and let go of what's not. And it's just really, it's been hard, but it's been good. I think I thought, well, if I just submit and obey and apply to school, then it'll get really easy. It's like, no, I submitted and obeyed, and it's just still hard. But I know.
Oh, if you preach, I'll be in the front row.
There you go.
I would
Give
love
me
that.
some amens as I go.
I haven't shared this often, but about 10 years ago, I did a semester in an interfaith seminary.
Yeah.
And I just loved the study of it. I loved learning about all these different religions as well. It was an interesting program.
Yeah.
But the reading was so intense
Yes.
that I ended up pushing pause.
Yeah.
And I think one day I'd love to continue it. But
Yeah.
I envy you, because just having that so much commitment to doing a deep dive into that, and you're going to know the Bible inside and out. We're going to be calling you like, do you have a quote for this?
Well, it's one of those things that's like, I haven't been a student, like a literal student, in such a long time. And it's just, it engages a different part of your brain versus being the one that's always doing the output. Like I'll read books and stuff and listen to podcasts, but this is like a student that is studying
Just take it in.
Yeah, it's stretching my brain in new ways, but in a good ways, in good ways. So
Yeah. And I think you're in the middle of Revelations, right? That's handy
that was
right now.
oh my gosh, that was last quarter. Thankfully, we're done with that. We're done with Revelation. We have moved on. Now I'm in this class.
Can you explain? Okay, I'm going to go Christian in a second. Okay, are we in end of days? Like, what is going on? Because my friends who know the Bible really well are like, oh, that's in there too. I'm like, really? And they're like, and this is too. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, is the world ending, Christy?
I know. They have talked. I don't think it is. But they have said that every generation has said that. It is the end times. It is the end times. It's the plagues. It's the, it's hurricanes.
It's in there though. I'm like, you're right.
It's also in there as symbolism for the Greco-Roman world that it was written to. So like when they talk about the mark of the beast, they're talking about Nero. They're talking about the emperors at the time that were really terrible people, not talking about a literal time that these things are going to happen. So that it's apocalyptic and talking about future in a symbolic way. It was also talking about very specific things that were happening. Like when they talk about Satan's throne, they're referring to an actual city where there were idols to other gods and stuff. So it's, we attach a lot more like, oh my gosh, there was a hurricane. This is what this means. And really we need context to understand what it was talking. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, I'm going to be calling you. I'm going to be texting you next time and be like, all right, what's this? Tell me about this.
I don't know either.
Tell me what page to turn to, because I need some help. Okay, thanks for clearing that up. The world's not ending. I'll make that a bullet.
Yeah.
The world's not ending because we have to finish this book launch too. So
Christy Wright confirms. The world's not ending.
Okay, good. Thanks for going there. This is why I love interviewing people. I'm like, can we talk about this for a second?
That's right.
I bet no one else has asked that question.
100%. Told you. They're all different.
Yeah. All right. So great time to share 3 pieces of advice. It could be anything I haven't asked you yet. It could be just great wrap-up tips, or it could be things you've even learned and who you've become as you've become the Christy Wright we know.
That's good. Okay. It can be anything unrelated.
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay. Number 1, say yes before you know how. Say yes to an opportunity before you know how to do it. I'm doing what I'm doing today because I said yes and just solved a problem. I had no permission or authority to do it. Say yes before you know how. Women are notoriously guilty for waiting until they have permission or they have all the credentials or qualifications. Just say yes. You'll figure it out how to do it by doing it. Number 2, be faithful to the platform that you have. People tell me all the time, I want 2 million followers. I'm like, well, are you faithful to the 200? Because I believe that when you're faithful with what you have, God will give you more. And some people are waiting for your platform to start to be good. You're not going to be ready for the big platform if you're not good now. Be good for your 200. Be good for your audience of 5 people that showed up to your speaking event. Be faithful in the small things, and I believe God can trust you with more things.
My first teleseminar, I have to jump in, when we did teleseminars and it wasn't online, I had 3 people.
Yes.
And one of them hung up.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, the stories I have from getting started as a speaker, Allie, I am with you. Like 2 people showed up, 1 fell asleep, and 1 clipped her nails.
One
like, bless. Yes. Everybody starts somewhere. So yes, I'll make that my 3rd one actually. So the first one, say yes before you know how. The second one, be faithful to the platform that you have. And the 3rd, give yourself permission to be a beginner. I don't care if you're making 10 figures a year, you're a beginner at something. And when you're a beginner, you're going to suck. Our problem often in trying something new is not that we're so humble. It's that we're so prideful, we're not willing to suck. We're not willing for our first thing to be bad. We're not willing to be a beginner in order to be bad, in order to get good. You're going to get good by first being bad. So have the humility, have the heart of a student to be a beginner and be willing to be bad so that you can get good. And I think that that's what holds a lot of people up at any level of success. But if you're willing to be a beginner, if you're willing to have those teleseminars where 3 people show up, if you're willing to fail or have a bad podcast or have a bad blog or product launch, you're going to learn by doing and you're going to get good at it. But you've got to be willing to be a beginner.
Yeah. I love that, Christy. Thank you so much.
Oh,
this was so great to reconnect.
Yes. We need to not let it be so long. I want to have you on the back on the show and come on out here. I need to get out to Phoenix. I'm so grateful for your friendship. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks for having me on.
This has been great. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.